is essential to the process of actual medical diagnosis.
So this is actually so wrong. But a lot of what she says, I think, betrays a very deep misunderstanding of how just a lot of things work.
Own brain to come to conclusions.
One of the bad things about mental illness in general, I hate everything that she has to say about going to the doctor. All of this advice is actually so fucking horrible and so fucking irresponsible. I should be grinding a RuneScape while suffering through this, but
it's not good. I don't think that's a good thing to do. I think that it sets a bad precedent, and it also contradicts the idea. I think he did call them ill. We can go back here. Look. Let's listen again to Vaush here, okay? Listen. Look, guys. Oh my God. Let's listen.
You guys ready for it? I'll get canceled for this, yeah. I do think that a lot of people who do this neopronoun shit online are just trying to feel special. They're doing the same thing people do with mental illnesses, where people will lay out like 16 mental illnesses and then a bunch of alters that they have.
Oh, fuck. I'm still tripping. I'm still on Rekful's couch. Oh man, I'm looping.
Where they're like, their alt personality is
Okay.
like...
So... let's talk about this, okay? Okay? Let's talk about this, okay? He's not calling them mentally ill. He's saying that some people are fetishizing neopronouns. But here's the problem, though. There is a problem, again, with meeting...
Can you turn it louder? No, I don't know why our videos are so fucking quiet. Oh, wait, actually, hold on. We have a Pro React plugin for this.
Meeting conservatives at their battlefield, okay? Right? Which is that you are essentially biting into the straw man in order to defend a larger point, right? The idea that like, oh yeah, they're fetishizing this, how do you know that? Is it possible that that's the case? Sure, maybe. Is it possible that people are over fetishizing, mental illness or something? Maybe. Is it possible that trans people are fetishizing the experience of being trans? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Do you see where this goes wrong? Do you see where this goes wrong very quickly? It's a mistake. Okay?
Okay, let's extract the journal argument and lay out the argument that she's trying to make. And then I'll demonstrate why she thinks it's correct, and then I'll tell you why the argument is incorrect. We'll just talk through this. So we have three different things here, okay? We've got, what she's actually doing, since I'm not talking to anybody else and I'm just talking to you guys, we'll be losers, and we'll say she's making the slippery slope fallacy. Actually, unironically. It's rare that people actually do this now, but she is. So she has three different things that we're talking about, A, B, and C, okay? Now, A is highly questionable, okay? B, maybe questionable, and C is the danger zone. So A is, she's saying, do some people go a little bit crazy about A, neopronouns? Maybe. But now if you say that, then do some people go a little bit crazy about B, like having all these crazy mental illness takes? Maybe. Well, what about C? Now people aren't going to believe anybody that's being trans. If we question neopronouns, then what comes next is questioning people's transness. The reason why this is fallacious, the reason why this line of logic doesn't work, though, is because A, B, and C are not equal. And we'll look at the difference. We'll just look at A and C and focus on this. Neopronouns are not the same thing as being a trans person. Neopronouns are a grammatical invention by people, mainly on Twitter, because they want unique ways to express themselves. That is not the same thing as the lived experience that people throughout all of fucking human history seem to have had, where there is a small subset of the population that feels as though their body, or that they at least don't have the same gender identity as they have gender expression, that the internal experience they have of gender does not seem to match the body parts that they're given with. The problem now, so if we extract the general form of Demonmama's argument, if you question A, then you question B, then you question C. The reason why her logic is broken here, if A, B, and C are all sufficiently dissimilar, is because I could say, you're questioning people's abilities to have a trans experience. Well, next you're going to question people's abilities to have certain mental illnesses. Well, maybe next you're going to question people's abilities to be like living in the Matrix, or being their own personal gods, or having psychotic breaks from reality and thinking that's real. I guess the latter is more like a declaration or an objectively wrong fact. But like the problem is that like it is good to be able to say that some people have dumb ideas and that some things are dumb and wrong. Just because we question dumb things as being dumb things doesn't mean that we've all of a sudden had to throw out every single thing that's not dumb. Just because we want to question the legitimacy of neopronouns doesn't mean that we have to question the legitimacy of a trans person. It doesn't make any sense because neopronouns are just a grammatical invention thing that people use for expression, and a trans experience is like a person's experience with being trans. These are two totally different things. This line of logic doesn't work. The reason why this is a fallacious use of slippery slope is because A and C are not connected here. You can question neopronouns without necessarily questioning somebody's gender identity, unless you're going to legitimately argue that neopronouns are like an intrinsic form of gender expression or something, which doesn't really make sense. So this is broken. This is a bad argument.
This is a mistake. And this is where I think that Vaush made a mistake in this analysis, okay? It's very easy because it is the argument I heard from Vaush today, and we're going to get into, is identical in structure, in function, and in direction to the argument to functionally Blanchardism, okay? Let me remind everyone.
I don't know what that word means. Blanchardism? What did they say?
Argument to functionally Blanchardism, okay?
Can somebody tell me what that means? I don't know what the fuck that means. Blanchard's transsexual topology is a proposed psychological topology of gender dysphoria. Oh, is this like the really weird person that says that that like all trans women are just like gay or some weird? Yeah. Blanchard categorized trans women into two groups: homosexual transsexuals who are attracted exclusively to men and who seek sex reassignment because they are feminine in both behavior and appearance, and autogenophilic transsexuals who, this is like some weird shit. Yeah, okay.
Let me remind everyone that every person who has a mental health diagnosis, Summarizer Rain, I'm going to need you to shut the fuck up and sit down. But thank you for the $1.99. Appreciate the dono, but shut the fuck up and chill for a minute. Or if you want to keep donoing in order to get your opinion heard, go for it. But hold on a second. Just everybody, oh my God. Listen, I don't believe that he meant to do any of this. I don't think that Vaush is like plural phobic or anything along those lines. None of that is what I'm here for. I'm not fucking canceling. We're trying to get
plural phobic. Jesus fucking Christ. Sign me up for that one.
The bottom of this, okay? And here's the problem, okay? Everybody who had a mental illness, who has a diagnosis for a mental illness, was at one point undiagnosed and was also at one point self-diagnosed. I'm serious. In fact, that
okay, let me just draw a distinction here. I don't know if she recognizes it or not, okay? So, real quickly, your goal when you go to the hospital and you go and talk to a doctor is not to describe what you believe is a diagnosis. It's to be aware of and to describe symptoms. The diagnosis is up to the doctor. There are a million things that might share a similar set of symptoms, and it's up to like a trained physician to adequately determine, or a therapist, I guess, to determine like how your symptoms might fit into a particular diagnosis. So for instance, I am not supposed to go to a doctor and say, hey, just so you know, I think I have like stage 3 renal cancer. You say something like, hey, I felt lethargic. I feel sick to my stomach. I have a headache. Your goal is not to present a diagnosis to a doctor, or your goal is not to self-diagnose. The goal is to just be aware of your day-to-day, to be aware of symptoms you might have, and then you give that to a physician or somebody with training that can try to give you like a better diagnosis of what's going on.
Is a good thing, okay? It is a good thing to be able to analyze your own brain, to come to conclusions. So,
and again, I don't think Demonmama, I'm trying to be very generous when I'm reading into her video, so I'm assuming she's mixing up self-diagnosis with self-awareness of symptoms. I'm going to try to be really charitable when I analyze this video so that I'm not just shitting on her the whole time. But a lot of what she says, I think, betrays a very deep misunderstanding of how just a lot of things work.
Own brain to come to conclusions.
So one of the bad things about mental illness in general is it actually can inhibit your ability to come to good conclusions about your own brain. This is why we talk to other people about like how we're feeling, or we try to give them a list of things that like, oh, I feel this or this or this. This is why sometimes friends and family are helpful in pointing you out to a physician or saying like, hey, go to this or tell them this or whatever. This is why you can bring friends or family sometimes to an appointment and have them take you, right? The idea that you like part of one of the biggest things in so many different mental health issues is having there's a specific term for this where it's not cognitive dissonance. It's a cognitive, I think it might be cognitive distortion is what I'm looking at, where you actually like inhibited. Cognitive distortions are habitual ways of thinking that are often inaccurate and negatively biased. Cognitive distortions are like a really big part of a lot of different mental health issues, and they can actually severely inhibit your ability to draw accurate conclusions about yourself. The idea that you would tell a person with mental illness that they can accurately come to conclusions about themselves and then take a diagnosis to a doctor is actually really harmful, really damaging, and betrays, I think, a deep misunderstanding of how a lot of these things can impact the brain and impact your like cognitive wherewithal to have a good understanding about yourself or your brain or whatever.
Will some people do so poorly? Of course. Their competence is an issue across the board. People can incorrectly self-diagnose themselves. But at the end of the day, the key political takeaway is that we have to self-diagnose.
So you absolutely don't. And the scary thing, and now I'm going to tack on a little bit more baggage here. The scary thing about a self-diagnosis and getting yourself into a box is that it's one, we are so good at mind fucking ourselves. So one is that you could actually start to have other symptoms that you don't really, because you think you do, because you go and you read a wiki and you start, oh my God, like I do this and I think I feel this and blah, 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 blah. For a really good example of this, for like a month or two after my mom got her Alzheimer's diagnosis, I started to think I was getting Alzheimer's because every single time I forgot, and I consider myself a fairly smart person. If you consider me a fairly smart person, take my word of advice of caution. Heed my words of caution. Every single time I like forgot a thought, forgot an actor in a movie, forgot like the name of a fucking video game or whatever, I was like, oh my God, I think I have Alzheimer's. I do, right? And I had to actually like think a lot. I was like, okay, hold on. I'm probably mind fucking myself. You told this story like an hour ago. Haha, good one. I actually had to like stop and think, and it was like, okay, how often do other people forget things in conversations? I'm going to start to like pay attention to that. And when I was listening to other people, then I realized, like, okay, hold on. A lot of people forget like, what's the name of the male actor in Batman? Like a lot of people forget like a lot of funny things like that. But it's like, okay, I don't feel as like crazy about this anymore. But there was like a solid like month time where I was like, oh my God, like I think I have fucking Alzheimer's. I feel like I'm forgetting everything, right? Which would be an unprecedented case of like the earliest onset Alzheimer's in the history of all of mankind. But yeah, this idea that you can like accurately diagnose yourself is actually damaging because you can start to exhibit other symptoms. You might make yourself worse off, and then you might go to a physician or like a doctor or whatever, and you might actually like fight with them over it. Where you like, oh, I don't agree with that doctor. He's not giving me the correct thing. Oh, he's not. You actually turn into a form of like, I don't know if I'd call it like hypochondriac, but like I remember my grandma would medicine shop hardcore. I don't know how she got so much fucking Vicodin. My grandma got so many drugs. because yeah, she would just doctor shop and doctor shop and doctor shop and doctor shop. And yeah, I imagine that like you could run into issues where like, oh, I know that I have this, I know that I have that. And then when you talk to a doctor that disagrees with you, well, now, you know, fuck him, fuck this doctor, I'm going to somebody else. I'm gonna go to somebody that can help me. I know what I have. I read all 3 paragraphs on the Wikipedia about this, and I know that I exhibit all the symptoms, you know?
Diagnosis is essential to the process of actual medical diagnosis.
So this is actually so wrong. Not only is self-diagnosis absolutely not essential and absolutely not required, it can be detrimental to the actual like diagnostic process, because you might start convincing yourself of certain things, and you might start answering questions in certain ways because you know, like, this is like the scary thing. Like, I don't know at this stage in my life, just because of how much I've read about this and who I am, and if I'm being truly honest with myself, I don't know if I could ever actually go to a doctor and get like an accurate take on like, are you autistic or are you like sociopathic? Because I know when I'm taking these tests, I know what the questions are asking, and I know like how I'm supposed to answer them, right? Like if I'm taking a test on autism and it's like, when people are talking to you, you generally find yourself bored, or you don't understand why they talk so much, or people oftentimes tell you that you're talking over them, or people oftentimes tell you that you're not like, okay, well, if I answer yes to this, I have fucking autism. If I answer no, then it's probably right. Like I don't even know, like in terms of taking those tests, if I could ever even honestly get through one, because it's like, fuck, dude, I know what I have to answer for the autism. I know what I have to answer for non-autism, right? Now imagine if you go in and you've genuinely convinced yourself of like, oh, well, I know that I have like a borderline personality disorder, right? So when you get a question and it's like you actually feel like people in your life don't care about you a lot, well, you feel like a lot of people fake caring about you, like, oh, 100%. I know that's a really common trait of like borderline. Yeah, you have violent outbursts. Well, when I play League, I get really mad. Violent outbursts are a part of borderline personality. Yeah, check the box, yeah, right? Like, it can actually be detrimental to the process of trying to get yourself help, because now you've got like this whole list of symptoms in your head that you read off of like fucking Wikipedia, and now you like are going in to like answer questions, and you're answering how you think you have, and then it's like, right, you fuck yourself so hard here. This is actually such an incorrect take.
To the process of actual medical diagnosis. Self-diagnosis is arguably more important.
This is absolutely so unbelievably wrong. It's just so unbelievably wrong. Okay, hold on. So somebody's saying, Destiny, usually questionnaires are only part of diagnosis. They also do different kinds of testing to back it up. It's using quantitative to back up qualitative. Okay, so I'm going to be totally, I might be wrong. If there are doctors in the chat, I would appreciate this. My understanding is that a lot of not just psych evals, but even health evaluations tend to be qualitative. So for instance, like even when doctors are measuring things in like your blood or whatnot, and they're looking at levels of hormones, usually it's not just the measurements. Oftentimes they're going to be relying on you saying like, hey, okay, so like this level's a little high, this level's have you felt more tired recently? Or do you feel like you're more agitated in the mornings? Do you feel like you're like those qualitative answers are, I don't want to say they're more important than like the quantitative data, but they heavily inform how that quantitative data is read. Because like a hormone level might be wildly different from one person to another, but like it might be normal for one person and abnormal for another, right? I'm trying to be careful when I say this. If there's like a doctor that wants to contradict me, this is my understanding of how true this is. So I can speak very particularly to things like testosterone levels, right? You might have a T level of 500 and another guy might have a T level of 450. You might actually have low testosterone. There might be something that's impacting you at 500 and it should be like 600 or 700. But the guy at 450, that might actually be his normal T levels and he's fine. So it might be that the person at 500 needs some sort of like hormonal supplementation, some TRT or whatever, but the person at 450 is doing fine, right? This is the case where you can't just look at a blood test and go like, oh, your number is this, you need treatment. Oh, your number is that, you don't. There's a huge qualitative part to like, okay, now your T measured this. Have you felt tired? Do you feel agitated? Are you gaining weight? Do you feel weak? Right? There might be a whole list of like questions where that qualitative side, because the doctor doesn't know generally ever when like what levels are necessarily normal. Now, for some things it's going to be different. Like I think for like blood sugar, like that's like it has to be a certain thing. Or like for pH levels, these have to be certain things. But there's a lot of like, when it comes to like hormones and when it comes to like qualitative stuff of the mind, it's really hard to just get like, here's a number, this is what you have, boom, 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 boom. A lot of it is going to be like qualitative. I work in medical biology, not a PhD. You're right. People range so much that doctors need to take qualitative data from the patient directly in order to understand how that level affects this unique person. Yes, that's my understanding of it. I'm not saying yes to like affirm what you're saying because you probably know more than me. But like, it's frustrating oftentimes because I think that like people go in and they would hope that a doctor, like, you just measure my levels and tell me what I need. But you're you know, if you look at tests, there's reference ranges for different things, and the reference range can be really high. You might have like a reference range from like 70 to 150 on something, and 130 might be normal for one person, or rather, like 110 might be normal for one person, and 130 might be low for another person, or 70 might be normal for one person, and 90 is low for somebody else. There might be something in their body that's inhibiting the production of that, like vitamin or hormone or whatever. Sorry, okay. There's a lot of extra stuff. The medical stuff is really, really, really complicated. I have lost respect for almost all educated professions at this point, unfortunately, because of how much horrible experience I've had with them. The one exception to this is I have not yet had a doctor or somebody through med school come on my stream and talk a whole bunch of shit that they weren't qualified. So I don't know if like medical training is like especially unique in the US or what, but usually doctors seem to know what they're talking about. And I've read like a lot of very frustrating things that doctors have written, both on Reddit comments or articles or whatever, where they talk about how frustrating it is to prescribe treatments to people, to argue with patients, because oftentimes there's so much that a doctor has to consider that like a normal person just can't. Not because they're stupid or whatever, but like you might get a person that thinks that like you're fucking them over because like, oh, you prescribed me this drug, but I had a friend that was prescribed this drug, or I read on Wikipedia that this one does way better. But when the doctor's prescribing you a drug, there might be like a multitude of factors that they're considering that you didn't know about. Like maybe they think that like, oh, well, I don't know if your liver is healthy enough for this drug. It is a good one, but it might not work for this case. Or there are complications between this. Right? There's like a million things that doctors might consider that you just don't glean in a quick Wikipedia article that, that's all I'm saying. Just, stuff can be complicated. During these days with the information that's out there on the net, everywhere thinks they're a fucking doctor and it's cringe. I remember that I read one I wish I could find this. I think this was a long Reddit comment I read a long time ago. Oh, I want to say like 8 years ago. It could be a fake thing, I guess. But I remember that there was because you always see these posts pop up where it's like doctors are in the pockets of big pharma. All they want to do is give you drugs, and nobody cares about. And this guy showed up he made this huge reply and he was like super mad. He was really ass mad about it. And he was like, listen, if I'm a doctor and you come in, like for a lot of the patients that I see, two things could massively improve their life: diet and exercise. If you come in and you're obese as fuck and you never exercise and you've got problems with your blood sugar and you've got problems with pain and you've got problems with high blood pressure, of course, all I can do is prescribe you a pill. Here's some aspirin. Here's an up on your fucking insulin. Here's this drug. Here's that drug. Here's that drug. Now people get mad at us, doctors, as he's saying, right? Because they say that all we do is prescribe drugs. But the reality is 99% of the advice that a doctor gives you in an appointment is completely and totally fucking ignored. Nobody takes the advice of what the doctor says. All they do is they go to hospitals for drugs. If a doctor gives you anything that's not a drug, you know what you do? You leave that fucking doctor. So doctors are discouraged from giving patients good advice or from like treating patients as like, here's what you need to do to improve your health. Because if you show up and a doctor tells you, listen, you need to exercise and eat better, you're going to fucking leave and go to a different doctor who's going to give you the pill that you need to control your blood pressure. And then also like drugs are a good stopgap sometimes to help with your health. You know, like if you're on insulin, that's probably necessary, I think, for the rest of your life. I don't know if that could be reversed later on. Or, you know, things like high blood pressure medication is stuff that you need to get prescribed, or it helps you at least, because having high blood pressure over long periods of time can cause a lot of other bad things to the body. But yeah. Destiny, doctors have dog shit nutrition and exercise advice. I don't believe that's the case. I think doctors generally have decent nutrition and exercise advice. The thing is that like it's probably not going to be like as good as like if you hardcore dig into it. But the reality is that like 95% of at least of Western world people's health would be improved by following a quote unquote doctor's nutrition advice. Arguing that like doctors give shitty nutrition advice is like, what is the comparison? It's like an Iron League player like complaining about like some particular thing. I can't even think of an analogy in my head right now. Like you can probably find better nutrition advice, but the advice that doctors give, if followed, would improve like 95% of people's lives, right? Yeah. Okay, sorry. A lot of these people who label themselves with depression or anxiety also treat it as a condition that is permanent. Oh, this is another thing that I wanted to get into. I want to talk about the word normal, okay? The reason why being normal is good and being abnormal is bad, generally, is because there's a lot of things that happen under normal that most people should want, right? So if we say that somebody is of average or normal mental health, you're like within where you should be. The reason why that's good isn't because that you like fit some fucking Judeo-Christian trad con, whatever. It's because normal people can do things that we all want to be able to do in life. So under the DSM, it's like diagnostic criteria for a lot of mental illness. Some of the questions that will be asked often over and over again are like, are you able to keep a job? Are you able to clean your body? Do you maintain your hygiene? Are you able to maintain friendships? These are questions that are going to be asked for like a lot of like diagnostic things related to mental illness. This is, for instance, like when you look at like, and we can even talk about like the qualitative versus the quantitative stuff, right? Let's say that you've got one guy who masturbates 6 times a day, and let's say that you've got another guy that masturbates once a day. Who's got the addiction? Who's got the fucking problem, right? The obvious answer is the guy that masturbates 6 times a day. But that's not actually the answer. You have to ask more questions. For the guy that masturbates 6 times a day, let's say that you have like an important meeting or engagement or a job to go to, right? Do you skip work to fucking masturbate? Like, no, I would never do that. I just masturbate like 3 times when I wake up and 3 times at night. Like, I would never miss a friendship engagement. I have no problems taking showers. I have lots of friends. I go out. Like, I can maintain a relationship. Like, I just like to coom a lot. Oh, okay, yeah, then you're fine. You don't have an addiction problem, right? Now, let's say the guy that masturbates once a day is like, if it's like 7 p.m. and I haven't fucking jerked off yet, I don't give a fuck if my dad is in a car accident and is crying, calling me to come to the hospital for his final moments. I gotta fucking jerk one out. Or fuck me, right? Or like, oh my God, it was so bad yesterday. I was supposed to go to a friend's party at 6 and I needed to jerk it at 5:30 and it took me an hour and I missed his party. Or like, I got fired from my job because I always masturbate in the morning and I just couldn't make it into work, right? Now, even though this guy is masturbating 1 time per day, he has an addiction problem, right? It's not just the quantitative number of times you jerk off. It's like, are there normal parts of a normal human experience that is like fucking your life up, right? This is like this is more of the diagnosis. This like more goes into like, do you have a problem? Destiny, you're describing functional addicts. Like, what if someone drinks alcohol every day but still goes to work? They're not an addict. With certain substances, it's a little bit different because there's always going to be like a negative effect. Like, I don't know if you can have a healthy, normal relationship with like super destructive. Like, if you drink every day, you're probably engaging in pretty self-destructive behavior because it will start to destroy your liver, right? Destiny, it's only a problem if it's a problem. Yeah. What was I saying? Oh, so anyway, this is why normal is quote unquote good. Now, the weird thing that happens is this is the feeling I get. Maybe this isn't the case, okay? But the feeling that I get is that people like will get these tags of like depression or anxiety or whatever, and they become like these essential parts of their character. Somebody said this in chat a few days ago. I don't know if it's actual in the medical community, people say this, but I actually totally agree. I feel like the term neurodivergent feels like it's been really weird in terms of how people associate with these things. Like, I think it's cool that people can have different minds, and I bet that there's like a wide swath of like autistic people that we shouldn't like stigmatize or demonize. Maybe you just have to like treat some of these people a little bit differently so that they can integrate well, and they're fine, right? But I don't think that you can just say that every single mental illness is like some form of like neurodivergency that should all be treated the same. Nobody should want to have anxiety. Nobody should want to have like depression or ADHD or OCD or bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder or like antisocial personality. Nobody should want these things. These aren't just like a divergence of things. This isn't just like other mind. These are ailments that we should seek to cure. These are things that we should get rid of. And sometimes I worry that when people give themselves all these tags, they view these things as like immutable characteristics and they become resistant to change. Like, you know, like 10 years ago, people would say shit like, oh, yeah, I have depression. Thanks for telling me to just go exercise, mate. Thanks, that's gonna cure my depression, right? And rightfully so. A lot of people would give really like dipshit advice and like pretend like, oh, you can get over your depression, just like go fucking hit the gym, bro. You'll be fine, right? Which is not fair, okay? And I understand that. But now I feel like people have turned this around to where like people are like, oh, I have depression. I can't actually go to the gym, and I don't want to get out of bed, and I don't have friends, and I can't sleep well, and it's fucking based. I tweet about it all day, about how sad and miserable I am. Don't tell me to do anything about it. My brain is broken. You don't understand. My brain is fucked. You would never understand my experience. Fuck. Like, no. What the fuck? Like, nobody goes to therapy, and the therapist says, yeah, you're going to be depressed for your entire life. I'm like, I guess we're fucked. Nothing we can do about it. Sorry, fam. I look forward to our, you know, meetings once a week for the rest of your fucking life. Like, what the fuck? People have taken like these mental disorders and they've turned them into like immutable personality characteristics where it's like a part like, who am I? My name is Stephen Bonnell and I have major depressive disorder and it's an integral part of my character. Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, it feels like it feels like people went way too fucking hard into this like this essentialist view of mental illness where they have to have this thing and they can't take any steps to fix it. Bringing this all the way back, we should all desire to be normal, such that we can have normal human experiences, because there is some gamut of normal human experiences that all of us wish to have, regardless of whether we acknowledge it or not. Everybody would be better off if they had a regular sleep schedule. Everybody would be better off if they had like a number of friends and family in their life. Everybody would be better off if they moved their bodies a little bit every day. Everybody would be better off if they cleaned up their diet a little bit. These are like parts of the human experience that are essential to all of us, that should be normalized. And when we say that somebody is abnormal or you are mentally ill, it's not to say that you are bad or stupid or weak or evil. It's there's some part of you that is out of whack that's moving you away from these healthier, happier, normal human experiences that everybody desires to have. Yeah, jeez. I'm responding to this because somebody made a comment. A lot of these people that label themselves with depression or anxiety also treat it as a condition that is permanent. When depression, anxiety, etc. are treatable to the point that you can resume with your life unaffected. I used to have generalized anxiety disorder, and with therapy and a lot of work, I was able to overcome it. Yeah, that should be your goal, is to like overcome and work through like a lot of these things, for sure. Okay.
And we should hope to encourage accurate and helpful self-diagnosis, because how can you possibly get a diagnosis if you're unable to be aware of your own situation? Right? Do you know what that leads to?
OCD is immutable. It's not like depression. You can't get over it just saying. First of all, I have never said that you just quote unquote get over any mental illness. I have never said that in my life. You don't get over any of it. A lot of it takes deliberate action on your part. My understanding is that OCD is absolutely something that you can work with a therapist, both in therapy and with medication, to control. That there are varying levels of challenging scenarios that you can put yourself in through exposure to try to get a handle on some of your triggers and to try to get a handle on like some of your routines. Like, I'm not saying that like every single mental ailment or whatever can be 100% fixed and cured, but like, I don't think that it's like, oh, I have OCD, that'll never change, boom, 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 boom. Like, you absolutely learn things to like manage your symptoms or to hopefully work towards where it's not as severe in your life.
A world situation.
Hold on. I think you mentioned this, but you agree with the perspective that autism isn't something that we should seek to cure, but accept and build society to tolerate. It's hard to talk about. I don't know why. Maybe if like a psychologist or whatever has like a good answer to this. I don't know why autism was put on a spectrum and called ASD. I personally, I don't like that, and I think it's stupid, but maybe there's a psychologist that can answer that for me. I truly don't understand. The reason why I personally don't like autism spectrum disorder is because like, on one end of autism, you've got like a person that's a little bit socially awkward. We used to say they have Asperger's, and they're just like, but they're like fine. They can like live like a normal life. Like it's not a big deal. And there are people that have what we used to call Asperger's that you don't even know it because they've like gotten over it pretty hard, or pretty well. And then on the other end of that, you can have like actual like low functioning autistic people that will like scream and attack people and they need caretakers for the rest of their life. And it seems really weird to me to have this on a spectrum. Because like if somebody says like, oh, they have like, should there be a cure for autism? Well, like, I mean, like, if you're like a quote unquote high functioning autistic person, I mean, no, it seems like it's fine. It's just like maybe a different way of looking at the world or your personality is different. Like, that's fine. But if you're like a low functioning autistic person, like, yeah, what the fuck? 100%. If you're a severely impaired person who needs help with yourself, you probably would want a cure for this, right? Yeah, some autistic people can't even talk. Yeah, so that I don't, but maybe there's like a good reason why. I know that our understanding of autism is I think pretty infant right now, or it's in its infancy. We don't know if it's a single disease, a collection of diseases. I don't know enough about but adding oh my god, this guy. Wait, what is this? Hold on. I very much regret adding Asperger's to the DSM-4 because it was widely overused to stigmatize millions of people. The DSM-5's autism spectrum is even worse for the same reasons, but the genie is not out of the bottle, and I doubt we'll ever go back to a more conservative diagnosis. Did this guy really do it? Author of Twilight of American Sanity, a psychiatrist analyzes the age of Trump. Chair of the DSM-4 task force. Destiny, my cousin is the low functioning, never spoke a word in his entire life and doesn't understand anyone who's 25. Yeah, so like people like that, and I've had friends with autistic family members, I get very upset. I don't really get that upset. I get really irritated when people will come out on Twitter and be like, oh, autism is just, some people are different. And people that talk about wanting to cure autism, that's wrong and that's disgusting and that's gross. You're horrible. And it's like, fuck you, motherfucker. Like, wow, good for you. You're a little bit socially awkward and you don't want to cure your personality. Congratulations, okay? But there are some people that are autistic that are disabled severely for the rest of their entire fucking life. Fuck you for pretending that all of it is the same shit. And if you could take a pill and cure some of these people, I'm willing to bet that most of these people that are super low functioning autistic people would probably be in favor of it. Don't make it all sound like it's the same shit. I think that's really fucked up. Genuinely confused. Are you saying we need an entirely different category for different types of autism? That it seems like the case, yeah. Like that. It seemed like it would have made more sense to me, but I don't know. Yeah. Where were we?
Right? Able to be aware of your own situation. Right? Do you know what that leads to?
Okay, I don't know if this is, I understand what you're trying to say here, but I just don't agree with it. I get what you're saying, but there seems to be utility in classifying like disorders together, even if the severity differs, e.g. stage 4 breast cancer is worse than stage 1, but still breast cancer. But I disagree, actually. Like, imagine, to make it more comparable, imagine if we just had like cancer as a diagnosis, even though there's a million different kinds, right? The different stages of cancer usually have to do with how far it's metastasized. So like a stage 1 cancer, I don't know if this is the same for every cancer. I might be incorrect. Somebody call me on it. But like a stage 1 cancer is like, oh, well, actually, I'll just speak specifically to the cancer that Rachel had. Like the stage 1 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I think starts somewhere in your abdomen. It's like right there. And then whether it's stage 2, 3, or 4 is just a measurement of how far it's moved through the body up and down. And then stage 1A, 1B, 2A, 2A just means it's asymptomatic. B means there's symptoms. So like in that sense, having like stage 1, 2, 3, 4 is possible. It makes sense because it progresses from 1 to 4. That makes sense. Autism doesn't progress from one to another. You don't start out with stage 1 autism and then get to stage 7 autism, unless you're like Main Yasso or something. Like it doesn't like change over the course of your life. A tumor may be a better analogy here. Sure, maybe calling like tumors cancer or whatever might be like a better example or something. But what's the difference between low functioning autism and just being mentally retarded? No cap. I think most people would call like low functioning autism like mentally retarded people. Like one of the closest personal examples I have of this, I knew a girl who had, I think it was 2 younger brothers, and they were both low functioning autists. I don't know if it's a real word, but like these people, like her mom couldn't be in the same room as them without like a big person nearby, because once her little brothers got older, like they could fucking kill her mom. Like they have super violent outbursts where they will like break shit or attack people, and you need like big people nearby to like get them under control or whatever. If you need like that was like their lived experience with autism. And hearing like that, and then going on Twitter and people like, oh, all of autism is beautiful, blah blah. It's like, damn, dude, I don't know about that, man. Okay, sorry. Somebody donated $50, but it's muted right now. Thank you, Tekken. Okay, where were we? Sorry.
A world in which only doctors can make declarations about your well-being is a world of asylums and gatekeeping.
This concept of gatekeeping is so weird. I think people forget why diagnoses exist as well, right? Like, the reason why a diagnosis exists is not to give yourself a tag on Twitter. It's not to give yourself a list of symptoms. It's not to like be a part of your person. The reason why a diagnosis exists is so that we can adequately like treat something or like manage the symptoms. That's why you diagnose somebody. It's not just to like make a statement about somebody. It's to like, when we get a diagnosis, the cool thing about a diagnosis is that it comes with a prescription. Now, sometimes that's actually like an actual prescription for a drug. Other times it might be a prescription for like certain types of therapy or different change in diet or sleep or whatever, right? And only doctors should be saying things like, this is your diagnosis and here's the treatment. Another reason why I feel strongly about this and why I hate what she's saying here is a lot of people will self-diagnose and then a lot of people will self-medicate. Oh, I've read the wiki. I know that I have depression, but I know that smoking weed helps it. I know so many people that self-medicate with weed. It's actually insane. I have such a negative view of that drug because of how many people I know that are smarter than, I know they should be smarter than this, that like actually, dude, I know so many people that smoke every single day. What the fuck? Are you even getting high at that point? Like, that shit is crazy to me. Holy fuck. Like, but they do it, and some people will do this on the back of like a self-diagnosis. Like, oh yeah, like I know of this, and I'm gonna diagnose myself, and like I'm gonna smoke weed to fix it, and blah blah blah. Like,
Yes, I can elaborate more on what I mean by self-diagnosis. For example, I figured out that I had BPD long before I had a formal diagnosis for BPD. I diagnosed myself by enlightening myself and having some people enlighten me to patterns in my life that were identical to that of BPD.
So I'm only doing this because she started it, okay? Now, normally I am incredibly, can I say tepid? I don't want to talk about somebody else's experience with like their own mental illness because it's an incredibly personal thing and it's hard to like, oh, you're wrong or you're right about this, okay? I will say that in general, would I say this? The feeling that I have is that somebody with borderline would probably be the last person that I would ever ask if they have borderline. Because like limited experience again, but like one of the things that characterizes borderline is like intense lack of emotional regulation, like extended periods of huge highs, huge lows, like a bunch of like self-doubt, a bunch of questioning of like relationships with other people, like a whole bunch of shit that goes on like this that inhibits your ability to have an accurate understanding of what's going on around you. I've only like kind of known like 2 borderline people in my life. So I'm talking with extremely limited experience from that. Maybe it is different in other people, and maybe other people have different experiences with it, but borderline seems to me, from what I've read and then my very limited lived experience, borderline seems to me to be like something that like you definitely need outside help determining. When somebody's like, oh, like I diagnosed myself with borderline and the doctor wouldn't. It's like, man, that almost sounds like when you're telling me that you diagnosed yourself with a mental illness that a doctor wouldn't, that almost sounds like a symptom of something else, right? Oh, shut up. I thought you meant bipolar. No, I'm sorry, real quick. BPD means borderline personality disorder, which is not the same and not at all related to like manic bipolar or bipolar disorder or whatever. Bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder are two different things. Sometimes people see BPD and they think bipolar, but it's BPD is borderline personality disorder. Sorry. It's a totally different thing, not related to bipolar. I've heard so many people self-diagnose themselves as BPD. Yeah, maybe. There are like some people in my life that I believe like I knew one person that had BPD, and they would go from like, oh my God, they would have one day where they would be like having so much fun with friends, and they'd be chill and they'd be cool and everything would be awesome. And then the next day they would be like throwing shit in the room, like screaming, like, I know that you guys fucking hate me. I know that this is all fucking bullshit. And they would get like violent. Like it was like the switch would be like, holy fuck, like you're actually like out of control. And the borderline shit seems like really scary to me. Or like that would be like a really frightening person. I don't think I could ever live with somebody with borderline personality disorder. Like, damn, that's like a really scary thing to deal with. Not that you can't get help if they get therapy or whatever, but like, yeah. There's a lot of like there's a ton of cognitive distortion, I think, that goes along with like borderline personality disorder. Okay, I'm speaking a lot in generalities or whatever. Let's like read this so that I can like, because I don't want to like, because now I feel like people are gonna hear this like, oh wait, I have borderline, blah blah blah. Borderline personality disorder is a condition characterized by difficulties regulating emotion. This means that people who experience BPD feel emotions intensely and for extended periods of time, and it's harder for them to return to a stable baseline after an emotionally triggering event. The difficulty can lead to impulsivity, poor self-image, stormy relationships, and intense emotional responses to stressors. Struggling with self-regulation can also result in dangerous activities such as self-harm. BPD is frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment by friends and family. This one seems to be a big one where they just think that like everybody secretly hates them or whatever. Unstable personal relationships alternate between idealizations, I'm so in love, and devaluation. Yeah. Distorted and unstable self-image, which affects moods, values, opinions, goals, and relationships. Impulsive behaviors can have dangerous outcomes, self-harming, periods of intense depressed mood, and irritability or anxiety, chronic feelings of boredom and emptiness, inappropriate, intense, or uncontrollable anger, all followed by shame and guilt. This is sort of feeling, yeah, okay. It's just the way I read these. Okay, gotcha. All right.
And what happened is I went, oh my God, I recognize these cycles in myself. And I said, wait a second, there's a name for this, and somebody might be able to help me with this. I diagnosed myself.
I can't imagine. I feel so bad. Man, if you work in medicine, with the advent of like WebMD, I can't imagine the fucking internal groaning when you get somebody that comes in and is like, hello, therapist. I've never been to a trained medical profession before ever in my entire life. However, I would like to tell you that I have diagnosed myself as bipolar, manic bipolar. Just wanted to let you know. I don't actually even need an appointment. I just wanted to tell you. So just give me my medication. I'm going to peace out. Like, oh my God, that must just be like the worst. One of the dangers of self-diagnosis that a lot of people with mental health issues won't acknowledge they have them. Yeah, Jesus Christ, yeah. But
and then I said, let's go talk to a doctor about this. And I started, once I figured out what problems I was struggling with, I was able to immediately start making positive changes in my life before I even talked to a doctor. Trans people always self-diagnose. Did you know that? In fact, arguably, that is the only way to be trans, right?
I hate this comparison of trans person to mental illness. Trans is not like a mental illness. It's different. You don't need somebody else to tell you that you're trans. Like that experience of gender is a more internalized thing.
We acknowledge that no one else gets to decide your gender. You get to decide your gender, which means you are intrinsically self-diagnosing if you decide that you are trans. Now, I acknowledge that there are some differences between structural medicine, like saying, here is this mental disorder that we have categorized, but we don't really care about that most of the time, right? What we actually care about is right? But disorder that we have categorized, but we don't really care about that most of the time, right?
this is true. What we care about is the treatment. I wonder what she's going to say.
What we actually care about is, what we actually care about is people getting the help they need, figuring out their own minds and living a better life for it. I will agree that obviously, like, there are certain circumstances in which, it's important to have some level of structure or institutionalization or whatever. However, self-diagnosis is incredibly, incredibly important. And I think that discouraging self-diagnosis in the name of denouncing a handful of potentially existent Tumblr people who maybe put a million things in their bio, maybe so that they can win the oppression Olympics, is a huge mistake, right? It is a mistake to give up.
This is probably one of like the worst videos I've ever seen in terms of talking about like how to deal with mental illness. This is up there, I think, with like probably some of the worst advice I've ever seen given on this kind of stuff before. And it's really sad too. And I'll throw this out there because I don't fuck this person or whatever. It makes me wonder if they've ever actually been to a therapist or talked to anybody or gone through any amount of therapy, because it feels like you would learn so much more from a therapist than to come out here and spew such horrible takes. It really makes me question. Some of the things that I've said this a lot before. This is really interesting to me. Is I had a close friend that they were going through therapy, and one of the most important factors in determining if a person like succeeds or fails in therapy is if they have like positive reinforcement from the outside. And so I said to this person, like, hey, I'll go with you to therapy and I'll learn your shit, and then I can. Maybe I can help you like practice some of these things outside of therapy or whatever. And it was crazy because the things that I learned in their therapy were actually really helpful towards me. I thought I picked up a lot of things like, hey, this is actually pretty base, or like this actually helps me understand this or whatever. And even not being the subject of it. And even like, I don't think I only like went to like, I want to say like 2 or 3 of these. But like blows my mind that she's been to any amount of therapy. And I feel like she must, if she's self-diagnosed borderline personality, she must go to some type of therapy, right? And you wouldn't have picked up any of this from a therapist talking about any of this at all. It's like really weird. It's so bad.
Importance of self-diagnosis, to downplay the importance of self-diagnosis in the name of denouncing some random idiots on Tumblr or whatever, okay? I think that's a mistake, okay? Just like I think it's a mistake to pass up on self-ID for trans people.
Is DM conflating introspection and self-diagnosis hella hard? Well, so like that's what I was trying to be really charitable. Like maybe she doesn't mean self-diagnosis. Maybe she means like being aware of your like symptoms. But that doesn't seem to be the case because she's literally saying like I diagnosed myself bipolar disorder, or you should diagnose yourself. Like it seems like she is actually running that far with it, which is really harmful.
In the name of clamping down on so-called trans trenders. We're going to get there, Alias. We'll get there. It'll all tie together, okay? It is the same. There is no difference between the transgender trenders and this.
I also don't like, in my opinion, it's really shitty. And damn, I feel so bad for trans people out there who you have your shit, you have trans shit, and it's finally recognized and it's getting wider acceptance. And now all these fucking lunatics are like a fucking cancer growing off of your transness, where it's like, hey, you guys supported trans? Well, guess what the same shit is? Fucking furries and neopronouns. If you don't support us, you don't support trans people. I can't imagine like you're like a trans person's like, what the fuck? Wait, where the fuck did this baggage come along from? Fuck you, motherfucker. Like that's your own struggle. Go do your own fucking fighting. Like just because you accept trans people doesn't mean you have to accept people making up their own fucking words for pronouns. Okay, what the fuck? The idea that they always try to tie it back to trans people so that it basically like is it Python? What do you do for programming languages where you make like a new class and inherits all the prior classes? It's basically they want to start a new idea, but they want to inherit all the protections from some other platform when they start that new idea. So I'm going to make a new thing and I'm going to call it like Keyline-inian or whatever. Like that's my thing, okay? Keyline-inian. However, that's a part of being trans, by the way, okay? So now if you attack my new idea that I created, I inherit all the protections. You're transphobic. You're a transphobic piece of shit. It's like, wait, what the fuck? Your shit doesn't have anything to do with fucking being trans. Actually, it is, because I said it is a subset of being trans, so fuck you. I don't even know what the fuck your shit means, right? Yeah, it's like, it's really, really, rather than like making an argument for their own ideas, or rather than making an argument for their own new thing, they just try to build it off of like being trans. And now if you attack that idea, well, now you're attacking all of trans people. Oh, you don't like neopronouns? Next step, you want to fucking Holocaust all the trans people. Way to go. Like...
problem with self-diagnosis is that I feel it lessens to credibility doctors have in diagnosing. Like a doctor is really the main person who can diagnose. No. No, it's not actually. Especially maybe in some alternate future where doctors are universal and also
She's trying to talk through the donut. She can't.
benevolent all through and through.
The problem too is, again, and I have to say this, her advice is so unbelievably harmful. People with mental illness oftentimes are cognitively impaired such that it's really hard for them to have an accurate understanding of what's going on with themselves or around them. And the idea that they are the most equipped to make a self-diagnosis is just so unimaginably fucking harmful. It is so unimaginably harmful. Jesus. And it sucks that she's trying so fucking hard to tie this into being trans so that her ideas seem more credible. Ugh.
The reality is that most people do not have access to diagnosis. They do not have access to doctors. They do not have access to good doctors with modern training. Instead, they are left on their own. So it is important for us to teach people how to self-diagnose and how to then find...
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of that insane, was it a 4chan community or was it a Discord community that was like trying to find like these lonely, like whatever people and like force them to get like fucking hormone treatment and shit. Does anybody remember what I'm talking about? Fuck, was this a Discord thing or was it a 4chan thing? Was it the R9 Discord where there were like these people that were like finding these like kind of like lonely, depressed people and like bullying them basically into like doing like HRT and shit. And it's like, what the fuck?
Any further help if they need it. But the reality is, think about it like this. Think about it like this. There's a couple of different things, right? Like, for example, think of how much of the world currently relies on people being able to self-diagnose things like COVID, right? They go, oh shit, I've got a fever, I'm coughing, I need to go get medical help because I have diagnosed with some level of certainty.
So again, she's conflating so hard. You have no idea if you have COVID. You don't self-diagnose. What you can do is you can recognize symptoms and then you go to a hospital. Guess what? We actually have 0% reliance on self-diagnosis for the coronavirus. That's why we test for it. You have never, ever, ever had a person self-diagnose coronavirus. You go and you get a fucking nose swab or a whatever to actually test for it. You're not self-diagnosing that you have the SARS-CoV-2 virus. You're just collecting a set of symptoms and then like making an assumption, or you go to a hospital and they actually test you for it. Like,
that I have the symptoms. A doctor has more expertise on that.
The funny thing is that you can actually argue that people misdiagnose COVID as well. How many people do you guys know? I knew friends personally that did this. How many people do you guys know? They're like, oh, the coronavirus? Oh yeah, I was really sick back in December. I think I had it. And then like later they either get the coronavirus or they have to take a blood test and find out, oh shit, I never did have the coronavirus, right? Like people actually misdiagnose that shit all the time. It's like the worst go-to example that you could have for this.
Why we generally take their diagnosis more seriously, but that doesn't mean that self-diagnosis isn't that I have the symptoms. A doctor has more expertise on that, which is why we generally take their diagnosis more seriously, but that doesn't mean that self-diagnosis isn't important.
Again, you only recognize symptoms. You don't self-diagnose.
Self-diagnosis leads to self-treatment. Hot take, ready? Everybody's gonna cancel me for this.
She's gonna say self-treatment is good, and then she's probably gonna use hormones as an example. Oh God, that's what she's gonna say. She's gonna say self-treatment is important. Self-treatment is good. Not everybody has access to treatment. Oh God.
This one, ready? Ready? Now here's the hot take. You're gonna cancel me for this one. You're gonna cancel me for this one. All of life is self-treatment. That is all that anybody ever does. All of their life is self-treatment. Ideally, we want people to self-treat with reason, okay? We don't want people to self-treat cancer because no person can do that. We want people to self-treat headaches. We want people to self-treat depression by exercising. Now, if it gets to the point where they can't do it themselves, they're supposed to seek help. And if
she's like kind of sort of correct, but she's using such weird ways. Like, do we want people to self-treat like certain symptoms? Yeah, sure. But the problem is self-treatment based on a self-diagnosis might mean that you are quote unquote treating an underlying thing that doesn't exist. So you might actually be making whatever condition you have worse. Here is a really good example. So you might have a cough. So you drink like cough syrup to treat the symptom, right? So boom, now you've self-treated, whatever. You might have a cough for months. So you just drink a lot of cough syrup for like months. Now you're self-treating something that might be incorrect. So Rachel, for instance, like took a lot of cough medication and shit for months before finding out, oh, she has fucking cancer, right? That's a self-treatment based on a self-diagnosis. Now, to be fair, I don't think she was stupid. Like, I don't think most people at 24 or whatever think they have fucking cancer. So I'm not saying she's dumb on that, but like that would be an example of like treating something as self-treatment based on a wrong self-diagnosis that could ultimately be harmful, right? Or people might abuse Adderall thinking they have ADHD, or people might, take some other medication thinking that they're treating something that they don't actually have, right?
Are treating yourself incorrectly, we would love you to be able to correct that. But the reality
Treating yourself incorrectly could be a result of a poor self-diagnosis, though.
is a lot of life is developing healthy self-treatment. Don't perform surgery on yourself, but that's an example of something where surgery isn't the majority of what people deal with. The majority of what
That has nothing to do with anything.
people deal with is, oh my God, I've got hemorrhoids. And what they should do is they should get some Preparation H and a fucking shit stool. There you go. Bam. Oh my God, I have a rash. Okay, put some cream on it. Keep it dry. Take care of yourself. Now, there are obviously extremes of this. We don't want people to avoid going to experts, but people avoid going to experts when they are scared of experts. And the best way to guarantee that people are scared of experts is by making experts evil gatekeepers who wait for you to walk in and go, yes, I'm sorry. You don't qualify for help. You'll have to die in the streets. You don't want your...
It's so weird because it's like, it feels, now I'm doing like the armchair psychological Andy here, but it feels like, and this is so unhealthy, this obsession with getting a diagnosis. This obsession. Like, imagine you go into a doctor and they fucking tell you, hey, listen, it sounds like you're just a little bit sad. You've mentioned that you're in college now, you don't get a lot of sleep, and you haven't been getting out as much, and you used to play a lot of sports in high school. Maybe what you need to do is, like, on the weekends, go down to the park and play games with friends. Maybe you should try doing stuff like that, right? I need a goddamn diagnosis. I want you to diagnose and I want you to medicate me. I need this fucking diagnosis. I need you, like, it feels like you have an obsession with getting a diagnosis. Like, that's what it feels like here, is this obsession with, I need the doctor to tell me I have this thing.
Qualify for help. You'll have to die in the streets. You don't want your fucking doctor looking like this motherfucker, okay? You don't want your fucking doctor. If you walk into your doctor, okay, and this is who you see, okay? You walk into your fucking doctor and this dude is like, oh yeah, your leg hurts? I don't believe you. Go die.
One of the sad things too about a lot of this is that like, so today, I think you can see, let's look this up before I talk shit. Okay, vaccine hesitancy near equal among white and black. I wonder if it's different for different reasons, though. Like, I wonder if white people tend to be Republican, so they're, like, anti-vaccine, but black Americans are, like, so I've heard this said, but we should look for data to support this to make sure I'm not completely talking my ass. So, in the past, black people have historically, for good reasons, have had issues with, like, actual doctors and professional doctors or whatever, but it's led to, like, big distrust in the black community over stuff that shouldn't be medically controversial. So, things like vaccines. I've heard this said a lot, but I should try to find, oh, here we have, like, Republican men and all this shit. So, wait, why is this so low? So, if a vaccine for the coronavirus is made available to you, will you choose to be vaccinated? Republican men is at 49%. Said yeah. Oh, said no. Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading this backwards. Okay. White people only know about Tuskegee, but it goes deeper than that. Cool story, bro. Tackling the reasons for hesitancy requires engagement, understanding, and trust. With mass COVID-19 vaccinations, including the UK, we need to understand and redress the disparities in this uptake. Data to 14 show that 90% of adults in Britain have received or would like to receive. Serious. The pandemic continues to have a disproportionate effect on people from ethnic minorities with higher COVID-19 morbidity and mortality and greater adverse socioeconomic consequences. Without an effective vaccination strategy to mitigate risk, the situation will worsen. Moreover, the differential uptake, vaccine hesitancy, it's going the failure. At least for the polling, I'm assuming this is for the U.S. I guess it's not that different between black people and white people. Although I really wonder if... I wonder what like Democrat... I wonder what like the Democratic thing for yes would be here. I'm really curious. It doesn't show it here. That's really frustrating. Black Americans attribute their mistrust of vaccines in general and the COVID-19 vaccines in particular to systemic racism, including discrimination and mistreatment in healthcare, as well as by the government. What contributes to COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy in black communities? How can it be addressed? Yeah, this is what I've heard a lot. But then looking at this, it's not really that... It doesn't seem to be as bad as I would have assumed it is based on like what I've heard about it, right? So only 25% of black people have said they probably wouldn't consider the vaccine, as opposed to overall 28% of white people. Now, a lot of these are going to be Republican, of course, but still, that's not where I would have expected this black number to be higher, just based on like what I've heard in terms of how people talk about it. But recent polls show that black Americans are less willing than Americans of other races or ethnicities to be vaccinated for COVID-19. These lower vaccination rates among black Americans have further widened the... Oh, interesting. Maybe they use different polling data, but okay.
If you walk in and this motherfucker is your doctor, you're never going to go to the doctor when you need it.
Also, why are we comparing every doctor today to like... what is this, like a witch doctor? Who is this? Like...
Imagine if you, wait a second, hold on. I got another thing. Ready? Imagine if you are struggling with depression, okay? And you know you can't handle it yourself anymore. Your approach to it isn't working and you want to seek out help. And the only guy that you can find is a guy with a million plaques on his wall and a huge suit and a big bushy beard. And when you come in, he gives you a stern look and goes, "Have you been drinking your water lately? You say you're depressed, yet you smiled the other day. That seems suspicious." Well, guess what? That is the reality for trans people.
Okay, so like, again, these qualitative approaches to medicine are one of the reasons why doctors have so much training, and it's one of the reasons why self-diagnosis can be so fucking, like, annoying to deal with, is because it sounds dumb, but it might be the case that a question like that might reveal that there is another reason causing, or there is another causal thing that's not actually you having depression or you having something else, right? That might actually be the case. Here's a really good example. Fuck, I'm not gonna be able to remember what organ this is. It is entirely possible that you could have all the symptoms consistent with Alzheimer's, but it might be a, it's not your gallbladder, it's not your kidneys, there's some organ in your body that can be malfunctioning, and it can cause you to have issues with your memory, hardcore issues with your memory. Thyroid or pancreas? I think it might be thyroid. Thyroid issues, memory. Let me check. Thyroid hormone. Oh my God. Can you say thyroid hormone 5 times fast? Thyroid hormone, I wouldn't be able to. Regulates metabolism in every organ of the body, including the brain. When thyroid hormone is low, it can affect your memory span and ability to concentrate. For many people, brain fog is a fleeting symptom. It might be the case that some issue related to your thyroid might actually be impacting your memory more than you realize. I don't know what you need to eat to make your thyroid healthy or whatever. But like, this might be like a really good example of, you go to your doctor and you know you have Alzheimer's. So you go in and you're like, "Yo, listen, doc, I got Alzheimer's. I need to hop on one of these clinical trials or I'm fucked." And then the doctor asks you a question. And he's like, "Have you been drinking later?" at night lately? Or are you drinking coffee or Red Bull at night or something? And you're like, why are you asking me this question? I already told you I have Alzheimer's. What's the fucking point? It's like, well, hold on, right? Asking questions. Maybe you end up saying some shit like, yeah, I just started a new job and I fucking drink coffee to stay up late every night and I have to and my sleep is fucked, right? It might be the case that asking some more questions, like, you might, before we go to the most extreme fucking possible thing you have, it might be that there's like a couple of things you could change and then boom, you fix your problem. You don't need medication. You don't need to have like a big, like, boom, we figured out your problem. It's cool. We solved it. Like, and now you can go on and move on your life, right? It might be the case that asking these questions is really, really, really important. I hate everything that she has to say about going to the doctor. All of this advice is actually so fucking horrible and so fucking irresponsible. Oh my fucking God.
Vicious. Well, guess what? That is the reality for trans people, mentally ill people, and a lot of people who are suffering from physical disabilities. Okay? That is the experience, because as it turns out, institutional gatekeeping focus of finding out who is the true sufferers is a really bad way of approaching things, okay?
She talks so much about wanting the true sufferers, the gatekeeping. I just want my tag. Give me my Kanto region badge for having this disorder, please. Like, it's not about that. It's about moving. It's about doing a differential diagnosis. It's about treating what's easiest and then moving on. What's the name for like, I do this with computers. It's like, let's say that my computer is shutting on and off or whatever, right? Well, what's the first thing you do, right? It's not time to tear out the fucking motherboard and replace it. It's like, okay, well, do we have a software problem? Well, let's fucking reformat the drive, okay? Worst case scenario, it's like, oh, our computer is still turning on and off. Well, is it a power supply problem? You could try swapping that. Is it a graphics, right? You go cheapest to most expensive, right? You swap out every part, you see what you can, before you make like the most expensive repair, right? You're not gonna do like the biggest fucking thing first. Start with what's simple, start with what's easy. Look for like confounding things and look at like, maybe there's just this or that or that. There's gotta be like a more formal name for this, but this is how you approach like every single, if you have a complex system, this is how you approach troubleshooting all problems, right? Like, are your car lights, like not turning on? Maybe you should replace your fucking alternator. No, check the fucking fuse, okay? If that doesn't work, check the fucking button in the car, okay? And then maybe it might get to the point where like, okay, well now we have to replace this thing or whatever. But you don't start with like the most complicated fucking problem, right? You start, buy a new car, right? Start at the very simplest thing, ask some questions, figure out, and then like, oh my God. Destiny, in medicine, there's a term. If you hear galloping, it's probably horses, not zebras. Most common problems first. Okay, sure. Like, people like to treat their lives like they're like on a fucking episode of House. Like, it's not a headache, doctor. I have like a glioblastoma or whatever the fuck the horrible brain tumor shit is called.
Who is the true sufferers is a really bad way of approaching things, okay? And I recognize, by the way, just so you know, I recognize that Vaush was not Vaush was not making an argument in favor of these things. But this is why I am challenging his take on this, because I think his take, even though it doesn't seem like it, does ultimately contribute to this approach with regard to plural folks. We'll get there a bit further, okay?
Oh, God.
Yes, in fact, that's happening constantly, D+, and it's gotten better over the years. We're making progress, okay? So we're going to keep going.
Are you going to talk about this with her on the Friday panel? The Friday panel is going to be a shit show. I'm only doing it because I like Dylan, but it's just going to be a bunch of people screaming at each other. Like,
we're going to talk about some other things as this goes on, okay? Sorry, this is going to be a lot of ranting and whatever. Isn't it important to understand why things happen? Yes, but that is not in conflict with what we're talking about here. Yes, I know. Yes, I agree. Yes, that happens all the time on Yashi. I've had friends with their depression shrugged off because they lack the social skills to communicate their feelings, probably when suicidal. Do you want to know why that is? That's because a lot of times people, they write off children, cringiness. They write those things off as degenerate and hilarious, as opposed to potentially just an abnormal way of communicating.
What? I don't really even know what she just said.
Anyway, let's continue.
Reacting to a reactive react. Yeah.
Yes, it is, Kate Kwa. Yes, it is. That is what it's like.
What did Cade Qua say? It feels weirdly validating seeing any representation. Is this what being trans and seeing representation is like? Because it's weird being acknowledged in the first place. Okay.
I'm ignoring the dangers of self-diagnosis in psychology. There are a lot of bias phenomenon, like stereotyping threat, so people might label themselves and then adapt more of the behaviors. Do you want me to blow your mind? Do you want me to blow your mind?
Blow your mind equals, here's some really stupid take that I haven't really thought out before, but I know it's controversial, and I'm going to say it. My audience is going to eat it up.
Doctors also do that all the time. I'm sorry. Doctors do this shit all the time. Did you know that a short 20 years ago, most trans people would have been diagnosed under Blanchard's dichotomy? Blanchard.
Why does she keep going back to trans people? Also, doctors aren't supposed to self-diagnose. This is why if you like get a degree in fucking psychology and you're gonna go to be a therapist or whatever, you're supposed to have a therapist of your own. This is why you go to the hospital and you have other doctors like work on you or other doctors test you. You're not supposed to do this shit to yourself. Like, what the fuck?
Dichotomy, which alleged that there were two types of trans people: fake perverts and actual trans people. Actual trans people like
yeah.
men.
Also, being trans is not a diagnosis. I don't know why she keeps going back to this.
And were pretty, and fake perverts were disgusting and didn't shave because they didn't actually care. That was the medical standard for diagnosis for trans people. Okay, this ceaseless worship of the ivory tower is foolish, okay?
God, it's so crazy how similar lefties and righties are when it comes to like writing off institutions. Like people on the left hate schools of economics and people on the right hate, I guess, everything else in school except for economics.
And that's not to say that I'm anti-intellectual. That's not to say that science and understanding isn't important, but you have to be willing to acknowledge the risks of putting all the power in the hands of a single gatekeeper. It is very risky. Okay?
And again, now I'm speaking more broadly. I try to be careful when I talk about medical stuff because everything, like in most of the hospitals I've been at, whether I'm going with Nathan or because we had to do this for his ADHD diagnosis and we do this for like his speech stuff, most of the doctors that I've communicated with, usually the thing that they communicate is the most important is like, you have to be able to communicate with your doctor what's going on. It's not about them gatekeeping or being the ivory tower. If anything, the patient is like the most important thing because the doctor can only go by what the patient tells them. Like this take is just so weird. I wonder if she just has either had shitty doctors or has never...
Single gatekeeper. It is very risky. Okay?
Yeah, I don't know.
And that's not even, yes. And Lucid Days brings up a good point, which is not even to mention that doctors often have ideological biases themselves.
And you don't? You don't think an individual has a bias themselves? Like,
mention that doctors often have ideological biases themselves. Jessica Metal, have you ever visited a psychiatrist? They treat patients like guinea pigs in order to find the right psych meds for patients because of how wildly different they work on each person. Yep, I know.
What? Yeah. What else are you supposed... Welcome. By the way, that's all of medicine. What do you mean? How do you think medicine works? Yeah, you have to go through different meds sometimes. There's not like a surefire 100% way to figure out what's going to work for you. Like, what is the alternative there? Is that supposed to be an owned? It's not treating you like a guinea pig. There's just a variety of medications that may or may not work. Like...
It's kind of anti-intellectual.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Jesus, fuck. This is like a boatload of horrible advice. I'm going to give the more common example, and then we can talk about the mental illness stuff. Here is something that a lot of people don't know. I'm saying people. This actually only applies to women. Here is something that a lot of women don't know. Different medication affects you in very different ways. One huge problem that a lot of women have is they will take a birth control, and then it won't work, and then they'll think that like birth control doesn't work for them. But that's not always the case. One, there are tons of different types of birth control. And two, there are like low hormone versions of birth control as well. It might be the case that when you take one form of birth control, you get the pill that's a certain type, that like you have horrible fucking periods, or you're spotting for the entire fucking month, or you get disastrous fucking mood swings, and it might fucking kill your libido. You might get some crazy shit on some forms of birth control. But it might also be that there is a pill that you take where, oh my God, your period is incredibly fucking regular, it's relatively light, and you don't spot, and you're actually doing better than when you didn't take a pill at all, right? There are some women that have really abnormal periods or heavy periods, and sometimes being on the pill can regulate their periods, right? But for a lot of people to figure this out, it might just be the case of like, you try one birth control for a month or two, and then it didn't work, and now you go and try a different one. The reason why I have to mention this is because some women do this stupid fucking thing where they try one, it doesn't work, and not only do they say like, sorry, I tried the pill, doesn't work for me, it sucks. They go around and they tell other women that, oh no, don't try the pill, it does this and this and this and this and this. The reality is that every woman reacts to birth control in entirely different ways. And sometimes you just have to hop on the fucking birth control carousel and you've got to try it. Some women that I know swear by and say that like the copper IUD is literally God's gift to women in terms of being the fucking A standard of birth control. I've talked to other women that are like, I tried that copper IUD, I fucking bled all the time, it was fucking horrible. I got the fucking shot and I didn't have a period for 3 years and that was awesome. And then I've talked to other women that are like, you know, I tried the fucking pill and I have the most regular periods and it's chill, blah, blah, blah. And I've talked to some women who like, no birth control works or whatever, right? I'm just saying that like, it's not abnormal that you have to like, try different things to figure out what works for you. Because guess what? Medicine is incredibly imprecise. Medicine and biology, I'll say it, here's my controversy, like, are borderline soft sciences. Biological systems, humans, are very complicated things. There's a fuck ton of things that you've got to take into account that is impossible to take into account when it comes to medicating them. So sometimes all you can do are try different medications and see what works. And a lot of that is going to be qualitative. It's going to come based on feedback from the person that you're giving the medication to. Yeah, so like, then to make this about SSRIs, sometimes it's the same with SSRIs as well, you know? Somebody might try Zoloft and maybe they don't get a fucking boner for their entire life. Or a girl, you know, tries Zoloft and she fucking tries to masturbate and she masturbates for 7 hours and can't fucking come ever, right? And then maybe you switch to something else, maybe you try a different type of medication, fucking Prozac or Wellbutrin or some other shit, and now all of a sudden like, oh my God, this medication fucking cleared my mind and saved my fucking life and it's the best thing ever, right? But that's a difficult process. You go from one medication to the other and it's challenging and sometimes it can be harder than just having whatever mental shit yourself, right? But like, it's all part of the trial and error process. It's the same thing with ADHD meds, you know? Maybe Ritalin or Adderall or whatever works for one person, maybe Vyvanse works for another person, maybe like, there's like this, it's complicated. The reason why I have to push back against this is because calling it like the SSRI carousel makes it sound like it's just some bullshit game, but it's not, right? You have to like, you need to like be aware that it's an imperfect practice and you try different things and you find out what's worked. That doesn't make it bad. It doesn't mean that they're bullshitting you or lying to you or that it's all fake. Like, holy shit.
Medical fat phobia. Thank you, Vermin. Thank you. Medical fat phobia is that case in point. Case in fucking point. It's in America, medical fat phobia is so bad that there is studied, demonstrated phenomena that fat people get worse medical care because...
Now I understand everything. A doctor told her to fucking diet and exercise, and now she hates all the fucking doctor community. Now it all makes sense.
Their doctors are so inundated with fat phobia that they won't listen to them. Thank you, Vermin. I had a feeling that you would be a voice of reason on this.
That actually, I'm pretty sure that what she's saying is actually true. That there are certain groups of people, fat people being one of them, that can have sometimes symptoms ignored when they talk to doctors. However, it is also the fact that like there is a lot of bad stuff that just comes along with being obese. High blood pressure, almost necessarily. High insulin resistance, leading to diabetes, almost necessarily. There are a multitude of other issues. I think there might be types of cancers as well. Just like being really fat or being obese, it carries with it a lot of bad medical things. However, if somebody's been fat for like 20 years and then like they're starting to have an issue and they go and talk to a doctor about it, if the doctor's like, well, maybe it's just because you're overweight, it's like, okay, well, fuck you, doctor. Okay? I know that I'm overweight, but I haven't always had like huge fucking pains in my abdomen. Okay, I don't think that this just started when I've been fat for fucking 20 years, dude. Right? So like it is technically true. Or not technically true, it's just that is true, that there can be like fat phobic doctors.
Okay? We're gonna get there, YOLO Hobbit, okay? We're gonna get there. All right, ready? I have another story for you. And some of you have heard this story. Some of you have heard this story already. And it is an anecdote, but I don't believe that this is, I don't believe that this is a rare story, okay? When I first came out to my parents forced me to go to a Christian therapist, okay? And when I went to that Christian therapist, who was accredited, by the way, had a nice wall of certificates. They were...
Why are you... Why are you about to talk about how much you hate medicine and your fucking point of reference is a Christian therapist? What the fuck?
They were legally allowed to practice. That Christian therapist recommended that I wait until I'm 30 to revisit trans issues, okay? I'm not kidding you. They would not write me letters until I was 30. I am 30 now. If I had listened to that gatekeeper, that licensed gatekeeper's advice, right now, well, first of all, I wouldn't be streaming, but right now you would not be listening to Demonmama. You would be listening to something else, some other person, okay? Some other person who would be a horrible larval version of myself. Nah, that's creepy, Jazz Dog. Oof, that squicks me out. Nah, but
Demon Papa. Nice.
I mean, I get it. Maybe it would be, but probably not realistically. The demon part was a response to me going forward. Doctors are human and they can be wrong. Just so you know, doctors are not the only people who collect data. And doctors who believe that they are the only ones who can make calls about a patient's internal mental processes are fools.
I don't think doctors think that. That's why they ask you so many questions. What?
They are the Bachelor at the beginning of Pathologic 2, okay? They are the Bachelor at the beginning of Pathologic 2, okay? They really are. But lots of doctors believe that, Lava Monster. Lots of them do. Let's continue.
Any doctor believes that is bad at their job.
Okay, let's continue. I've made my point.
Like a vampire person. But here's the quick follow-up, okay? The hot take, the hot follow-up, okay? Who cares? Jesus Christ.
That's okay, Chloe. Don't worry.
That's your God-given right, okay? That's your God-given fucking right to be an embarrassing adolescent, okay? God gave you that right. When you were born, you were endowed with the right to be that thing, okay? You can be an embarrassing adolescent. You can be, this is an advanced tactic. You can be an embarrassing not adolescent. You can continue to be embarrassing your whole life. I support you. You can be a not embarrassing adolescent. Challenge mode impossible. I believe in you, okay? Now, the broader discourse around neopronouns, unfortunately, we have to agree on one common thing, okay? Most neopronouns don't serve the same purpose as regular pronouns. Do you know why? Because the purpose of pronouns is to simplify an item by referring to it by a
this is my thing. Neopronouns are just, it's another name for a proper noun. If you have unique pronouns, then they're no longer pronouns. What the fuck?
Pronoun rather than a name. But neopronouns are basically just nicknames. There are so many of them, and people just invent them for themselves. They become nicknames, like that tree person. It's basically just a nickname, okay? They don't serve the functional utility of a pronoun, because the job of a pronoun is to avoid using a name. You know?
Hey, Doe wanted to go to the supermarket after work. Do you want to go with us? Oh, yeah, sure. Who's Doe? What do you mean, who's Doe? Their name is Samantha. Doe is the pronoun. Wait, did you think I was saying their name was Doe? You're so fucking stupid. I meant Doe as in, like, she wanted to go. But I would never say she because that would be, like, what is the point of a personalized pronoun? What the fuck? Oh, my God.
No?
Okay, so, again, I don't entirely agree. So, now we're going to talk about a little bit of neopronouns. And I'm going to explain why I don't agree with Vaush here, okay? First of all, pronouns serve multiple purposes, okay? Multiple purposes, okay? In some ways, pronouns are about smoothing out language. Now, there are languages that don't really use pronouns, by the way. But at the end of the day, language...
I don't know enough about languages. There are common languages that don't use pronouns. So you'd have to say the person's name every single time? How many languages are like that? It's got to be the exception, no? Japanese has no pronouns. So when I'm reading the subtitles of my animes and they say like he or she or whatever, that's actually just a mistranslation. They're just saying the name. Yes, it does. That's false. Who said that? That's anglicized. Japanese has pronouns, they're just not gendered. Oh, okay. Okay. Also, we're talking about English, so it wouldn't even matter, but yeah, okay.
Is very, very.
I would actually believe the Japanese thing, though, because I think there are times where I hear them say a name in the anime, but they'll use a pronoun instead. And it's like, wait a second, I heard the name. Why did they write that in the translation or whatever? But that might be the case, too. But that might just be like a stylistic thing or whatever. I don't know.
Is very, very abstract, okay? Here's a secret, okay? Language is fucked beyond all recognition. If you want to understand what language looks like, if you could zoom out and you could see all of language, do you know what it would look like? It would look like the bottom of a garbage can after it's been...
Okay, people will say this is... So, I had a longer set of tweets to the dear person about shit like this. People say stuff like this so much now. Oh, this thing is entirely abstract and meaningless. Oh, this is actually totally arbitrary. Oh, this looks like the bottom of a trash can. You can say that all you want, Chief, but 99.999% of people around the planet seem to communicate pretty well using a language. So however jarbled and fucked up you think it is, it seems like most people don't agree, or at the very least, it has utility for almost every single person on the planet.
Sitting in the hot sun for a year. There is bacteria growing, creatures rising out of it. A mushroom is...
Okay, I'm not going to react to like the rest of this video, so we'll finish like this neopronoun thing and then move on. I think we got through all of the absolutely fucking garbage mental health takes.
Growing up out and possibly spraying spores into the sky. It is the most... language is the most Lovecraftian nonsense. And pedants suck, okay? Now, we can all acknowledge that there is good writing and bad writing, but the sad truth is that most of that is very subjective. Very, very subjective. And do you want to know,
I need to talk about this more. While things are quote-unquote subjective, that doesn't mean that they're totally arbitrary or worthless. So for instance, intervals in music are arguably arbitrary or subjective. But if I were to play something like this, so this is a low C and a high C, right? They sound kind of the same, right? Well, is that arbitrary? Well, not really, because if we were to actually put the waveforms, oh my God, I could never fucking draw these. Like this, I can't do it. I could never draw these. I can't. Technically, the octave is it's twice or half the period. Is that the word I'm looking for? Oh my God, I actually can't do it. I actually can't draw it. Wait a second. I'm not gonna be able to do it. But okay, we can argue that the intervals are arbitrary, but if we were to draw the waveforms of both of these notes, one is going to be twice the frequency of the other, half the period. The waveform is going to be like twice the ups and downs. There's names for these. I forgot all of it in physics and music. Well, in music, we don't really learn the physics part of it, but I forgot it all from physics. So this sounds okay, right? That doesn't sound okay. Now, is it all arbitrary, bullshit, subjective, what note is what? Yeah, kind of. However, if we were to draw the wavelengths next to each other, we could actually match out why this clashes so much. And it actually maps on to a very real physics description of how these things interact with the air, of how these waveforms smash against each other, right? I hate it when people use this phrase oh, it's subjective, or it's arbitrary, or it's whatever. Just because it's subjective doesn't mean it's not real. It doesn't mean it doesn't map onto something real, right? The color red is subjective in a way, but there is a very real wavelength on the electromagnetic spectrum, on the visible part that it maps onto. You can call it something different. We can draw boundaries in different areas, but they do map onto very real things. People seem to not understand this.
Subjective. And is that most of that is very subjective. Very, very subjective. And do you want to know, oh, well then, here, I will do my absolute best, Vermin, to use it's. I will do my absolute best. I will do my best.
I don't take these people seriously. This is me being phobic of whatever the fuck this is. I'm sorry. I am. I think I'm starting to see 32 years old. I'm coming up into walls in my life where maybe you guys take the reins and you go forward and I can't go any farther. People that say that they want to go by its pronouns, it's too much for me. I'm sorry. I wholesale refuse to believe that this is not just a cry for attention. That maybe in 5 years I get banned from Twitch for having that take, and that's my time on the internet is gone. But it's just too much for me. Sorry. Yeah.
And no, don't. Oh, okay, I won't then. All right, never mind. Okay, I won't. Fine. Okay. My apologies. I didn't mean to jump the gun. Where was I at? Oh, okay.
I am much more defensive of pronouns like Z, Zim, and Bun Buns now that I have personally known people who have found euphoria and gender confirmation in that. What gender are you confirming on neo-pronouns? I don't believe it. I'm sorry. I truly don't believe it. I'm sorry for that.
Languages are maddening. And what is most important about language, and I say this as somebody who has written professionally, who has self-published a book my entire life.
Anybody can self-publish a book. I don't know why people would ever point to this as being like you can go on Amazon right now and self-publish.
Language. And I say this as somebody who has written professionally, who has self-published a book my entire life is devoted to communication. Language is much more, what is most important about language is this right here. Ready? This right here. What you are looking at on the screen right now is what is most important about language. Being able to connect with another person, okay? Being able to connect with other people is what is most important about language, but that is a very difficult process. Some languages don't even use the same structures as others. It is being able to...
What's okay? What is... And? What?
To connect and hold on with other people and communicate your ideas over to theirs. People can in a bit. Ziggy, I'll debate after this. It's very subjective. And so when I say that pronouns have multiple purposes, they really do. For some people, pronouns are nothing more than a simple shortening, functionally a nickname. Functionally a nickname. Thank you very much, Snuffinson. Yes, telepathy would be incredible. Some people...
Can you write a melody with a minor second in it? Minor seconds are easy because they appear in major sevenths. But, this is a minor second, but it's like the seventh of like a... It's a very easy interval to write if you know chords or whatever. You can make any two notes fit together if you want. It's not hard.
Use pronouns just as basically a nickname that you shorten for the purpose of making communicating easier. Other people see pronouns as a very serious matter of personal expression.
Okay, fuck off. Your personal expression, okay, doesn't have to extend into me changing every single part of how I speak. I think that hooking into he, him, or she, her pronouns is fine. We already have pronouns as an established form of speech. If you identify as male or female and you want somebody to use a set of pronouns, that's fine. Plugs into what we have. But when you're starting to say here are entirely new words that you need to incorporate into your, here's a question. What's the difference between, should we have neo-adjectives? From now on, I go by Thayer Fur or whatever, the fairy ones, right? I want to be, if you say that I'm smart, it has to be, Thayer Intelligent. Or, Smerry, airy, Smerry or Intelligary. Do we need, neo-verbs? You don't have to express yourself in every part. There's tons of ways to express yourself in how you look and how you act and how you present, the things you listen to, the whatever. You don't have to invent new, whole new parts of grammar for other people to It's so incredibly pretentious.
Trans people fall into that second category. And the reason for that is because in English, pronouns indicate your gender. And gender, which is stupid, but that's how it works. And so trans people care a lot about pronouns because pronouns are a way that other people can impose identity on a trans person. Okay? There are languages that are genderless. Which is pretty cool. I recognize that. Pronouns do not necessarily mean gender inherently, but in English, they're very loaded, which is why it's a big issue in English. Other languages don't have, oh, cool. If you do the okay handshake with the fingers, that's amazing. Thank you, she who knows no name. Thank you. But yeah, pronouns in English are very important for that reason, okay? So, and then there's a third point, okay? Ready? There's a third point. And I've talked about this before, and I'm going to talk about it again.
Yeah, this is the last thing.
A third way that people use pronouns, and this isn't uncommon, but it is probably the least common of all three of these.
Oh, God.
The first is the most common. Most people don't ever think about pronouns. And there's a lot of people who do because they recognize that pronouns are being used to determine their identity. That's what trans people experience, many trans people and non-binary folks. Then there are third people who recognize that pronouns are an arbitrary construct that in our society, specifically in America, are utilized politically to control other people, okay? And this is...
All right, thanks, Orwell. I'm good on that. Okay, I don't need to go on this. Let's see. Apparently she responded to part of my airport talk to the mental thing. I don't know. We'll do a little bit of this, and then I think we're done.
Did you see what Destiny said about me? No, and I don't fucking care. Honestly, I just don't care. Destiny has been harassing me and people that I care about for the last...
I wish I could say more, but I can't because of how fucking garbage the internet is today. This is a new thing that appeared because like all corporations have this huge fucking bend now towards like making sure they're as like nice and whatever as possible. The advent of the cry bully, I think, has been one of the most obnoxiously horrible fucking things to come out of like the huge like ultra left movements on the internet. It is so obnoxious that somebody can be such a disgusting fucking piece of shit and then cry foul when you respond to them. It is so fucking irritating and infuriating to me. God, I wish sometimes we can go back to the 2010 days or to the 2005 days of like, you're gonna fuck around on the internet, we're gonna fuck around on the internet. Not this shit where you like do these massive harassment campaigns against somebody, and as soon as they fight back, oh, you're being transphobic, ableist, and hateful all at the same time because you attacked me. Like, fuck you, dude. Or dudette, I'm sorry. That's gonna be called like misgendering now. Oh, fuck.
Last week, the guy is completely unhinged. He has no, he has nothing better to do with his life. He was literally on vacation heckling me. So yeah, I don't really care what he says.
I always tweet on vacation. This person didn't care so much that they were getting into the weeds arguing with all of my fans on fucking Twitter, by the way.
Destiny is incapable of being honest with regard to me. He literally has said that he just doesn't care. He thinks that I'm not worth honesty, and his audience doesn't care either because he's been...
I roughly still agree with that. I don't think that she is a good faith actor, and I think that most of what she says is actually pretty... Before it was just irresponsible, stupid, and clueless and ill-informed. Now I think it's actually dangerous. Thankfully, she doesn't have that large of a platform, but the last video that I saw regarding mental health, there's probably been some of the worst and most ill-informed and maybe most dangerous takes that I've heard in a long fucking time. I don't think I've seen that many bad takes all combined into one video before, like in forever. I'm not even sure, actually. Jesus.
Basically... like I've said before, training his audience to be the most yes man cult-like group of people on the internet.
She does this a lot, where she calls my fan base cult-like, but then she tweets out about how I got downvoted, so my fans are rebelling. I don't understand, but yeah.
I agree. No use whatsoever. In fact, I would argue he has negative use. Destiny is probably one of the most toxic people. He's basically Democrat Keemstar. Like, unironically. I think that he behaves just about the same. Like, his politics are slightly better than Keemstar's, obviously, because Keemstar is like a fucking full-on reactionary. But it's true. The way that he behaves, the way that he treats other people, and what he does with his show right now is nothing. It is meaningless. It's It's League of Legends and him causing personal drama with people he doesn't like with the goal of hurting them. It's totally stupid. Like, whatever. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Destiny in 2019. Your jokes are never just jokes. Destiny in 2021. Oh, you don't agree with me? Okay, up your meds. Go to therapy. Minecraft yourself.
True.
Yeah, I can't either, Vermin Hands. People
Listen, except my advice is actually true. I'm sorry. And I'll stand by it. If you have multiple mental illnesses listed in your Twitter profile and you're online, like getting traumatized from arguments, you should probably go back to therapy and you need to stop engaging in that. I'm sorry. I stand by it. Social media is not healthy. I don't know why the fuck you would subject yourself to it if you already have so many problems. Like, especially like if you are indeed somebody and self-diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, why would you throw yourself into one of the most like toxic, hateful fucking areas in the internet? It doesn't make any sense. It can't be mentally healthy. Like,
make endless apologia for him. I wonder what's going on in their heads. I wonder, like, it's really funny too, because I've never seen anyone, not even the Vaushites, the dreaded Vaushites on the internet who are supposedly super defensive about Vaush. None of them even compare. If you even say something that could be interpreted as about Destiny, a bunch of people will come in and they will immediately start making apologia for him. And it's almost like they're guilty. It's like they feel guilty about liking him. And they have to fight with you so that they feel better about themselves. It's so sad. Oh my God, it makes me sad. Yeah, I agree. They're not toxic. Yeah, I saw that. I saw the self-owned dough. Oh my God, literally self-owned. Big Joel is just talking about being a dick on the internet, and then Destiny like retweeted it and was like, what do you mean? And it was like, I literally never mentioned you.
I like how these people all pretend that whenever I get into any drama with anybody, they all don't run around and like incessantly subtweet me. It's the funniest shit in the world. And they're like, why did you assume that was about you? Like, wait, do you think I'm like a fucking moron? Or what do you mean? Sean does this a lot. It was so funny because the last time Sean tweeted, it was like, oh, it was in response to Bad Bunny. He was like, wow, I didn't even know Destiny was still on Twitch. But like, if you scroll back, motherfucker, you've been liking tweets and like, you fucking liked like 7 tweets related to my Richard Wolf debate. Why are you acting like you don't know that I'm on Twitch? What are you doing? Like, okay, dude.
So funny. Holy shit. Oh my God, so fucking funny.
It's just optics. It's to make you appear as the obsessed. Yeah, I know. The goal is to just make me appear obsessed or whatever. Oh, God, I hate smoking.
Literal self.
And she does it in her fucking house. It must stink so fucking bad.
By the way, Big Joel, don't fuck with Big Joel on Twitter. Big Joel has Twitter posting energy of unbelievable level. Like, literally, you might underestimate. A lot of people underestimate Big Joel. A lot of people underestimate
Big Joel is just like another standard. Oh my God. Imagine, when is, never mind. I don't want to even do it. I wish we could go back in time sometimes. Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed. I need a goddamn diagnosis.